In a profession often defined by retrospective compliance and rigid billing hours, my guest today is leading a transformation that proves accounting is as much about philosophy and psychology as it is about the bottom line. Jackie Cardello is the president and managing partner of GRF CPAs Advisors. Since taking the helm in 2013, she's led the firm through a period of explosive growth. But her most audacious move wasn't a merger. It was an intentional revolution. Jackie dismantled the traditional eat what you kill compensation model to build a one firm culture where partners are actually incentivized to give their clients away to the next generation. Today, we're going to explore why fierce independence is the secret sauce for attracting top talent, how a background in the humanities helps shepherd a 200-person firm, and why Jackie believes the ultimate measure of a leader is leaving the chair better than they found it. Jackie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm delighted to be here. Excited to talk about this topic.
Well, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you outside of just preparing for this podcast, and you are the real deal, Jackie. You are a true steward. So I am so excited for our audience to hear from your background today. Let's just jump right in. I want to talk a little bit about the foundations and origin of your mission first mindset. If you had to look back on your earliest professional years, was there a specific person or a foundational memory that shaped your view on what it means to lead with a mission first mindset?
Yes, actually, one of my greatest mentors was Michael Friedman. He's one of the founding partners of what is legally named and what was called Gelman, Rosenberg, and Friedman. Now we're doing business as GRF CPAs and Advisors. Michael Friedman was a fantastic mentor. He was one of our audit partners in the nonprofit space. And the fact that our firm was kind of built, sort of the foundation of our firm was serving a vast amount of nonprofit clients, and with a belief that we give back to our communities. And we're not only just serving and providing services for nonprofit organizations, but actually becoming invested in their missions, helping them, giving back to them, volunteering, serving on boards, things of that nature. And that really set the stage for me in terms of what it means to not just be in a business and run a business and make a living, but while you're doing it, to appreciate the clients, to appreciate the community around you, to appreciate what the ultimate mission is, and understanding that there's something beyond the debits and the credits and the profit and the bottom line. And that's really kind of what got me started with this mindset. So between coming to work for a firm that specializes heavily in nonprofits, and we do serve other types of businesses and for-profit companies and individuals as well, but we do have a very, very large presence in the nonprofit community thanks to our founding partners. And again, Michael Friedman as a mentor, instilling that mindset and embedding that into our culture, that it isn't just about, again, debits and credits and running a business. It's, why are we doing this? We are doing this to further our mission.
I love that. Was that focus on community impact and change the way you looked at your career path early on, or was that kind of a pivot, when you first joined the firm and saw the opportunity to influence within it?
It was more of a pivot. I had previously been with a firm where I was involved in the for-profit industry, and I thought that's what I wanted to continue to be in, and I wanted to actually specialize in tax. Came over to Gelman, Rosenberg, and Friedman, started working with nonprofit clients, started working more in the audit practice area, and just really realized that I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the fact that our clients aren't just interested in what's my profit, how much can I take out of my business, how much money am I going to make, but they're interested in, how am I serving my community? How am I serving my stakeholders? What can I do to provide more resources? And that was a pivotal moment for me, realizing that, again, there's more to business than the financial aspect and making money.
Yeah, I can really resonate with that. When I started this business with my partner back in 2021, our intentional focus was to elevate leaders of companies that believe that they existed for more than just profit alone. Now, profit's incredibly important. It's the lifeblood of what makes our business possible and what serves our stakeholders. But it's been such a joy to understand after about 20 years of my career that there are people like that out there and
Yes.
that is a better way to do business. And in fact, they're proving that over the long arc of time, it's more sustainable to build a company around those foundational values. So I want more people to understand that that exists out there, that those options are available for employment, for leadership, and that it is actually better for business in the long run, which is kind of an awakening in our careers. We don't always see that.
I completely agree.
Yeah. You had mentioned to me that you geek out on accounting, but you also have this deep background in English and philosophy and psychology, which I think is truly unique. How does that balance between the technical and the human help you to manage a 200 plus person firm today?
Well, I think I'm a bit unique as an accountant that I use both sides of my brain. And unbeknownst to me, when I was starting my college career, I didn't know I would end up in accounting. That wasn't my first choice, and I was leaning more to the humanities, and those types of courses really interested me. And little did I know that I was preparing myself for the future, even in accounting, because those skills come in handy. They call I use both sides of my brain, and it helps me to sort of see the big picture more than just the technical aspect of it. As accountants, we're really trained in our college careers on the technical, and there's not a lot of, even with the electives, not a lot of focus on the humanities and the English and the psychology and sociology and those types of courses. So I actually started on that path and then went into accounting. So I continued taking more courses like that. And I just think it helps me to look at the big picture more than just, again, like drilling down into the technical aspect. It helps me to see and to understand sort of, where are we headed? What are the impacts, both internally and externally, facing us as an organization? Understand the human side better. Having taken a couple of psychology classes, I'd like to think that helps me with dealing with people. That's a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis, is really interacting with our GRF team. And it's helpful in me understanding, communicating, to developing my communication skills. So that's really come in handy, using both the technical and the more sort of soft skill and analytical skills.
Yeah, it's amazing that you had that early training and what foresight, because I see you as a truly human leader. But what challenges have you faced with trying to protect that space for human elements in an industry that's just so dominated by KPIs, performance, and just how do you bake that into your leadership rhythm?
Yeah, there's been a lot of challenges. Some of it is internal, some of it is external. Of course, with the massive amount of mergers and acquisitions going on, private equity coming into the space. A lot of our peers have taken private equity or merged in with larger firms. Keeping up with technology, the demand for talent is ever present. For a while, there were very few folks that were going into accounting. The numbers were shrinking and dwindling. And keeping up with all of those things is really important. What I've found is that we've had to get our partners on board with focusing on more than just the bottom line and bringing in business and running a book of business. And that's really what's helped us form our strategy and adhere to a strategy and make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction to achieve that strategy. And what it requires is realizing that everyone has different skill sets. So it's not one size fits one. All of my partners have different goals, different strengths, different areas that they are working to improve. And I encourage someone to constantly improve themselves as leaders. I'm a big believer in coaching and mentoring, and they all have different goals. We shifted several years ago from what we call an eat what you kill or formulaic compensation model to a goals-based system, which rewards behaviors other than just bringing in business and building that book of business and
I
serving
imagine
your
that was a pretty big
clients.
change, right, for that
It
industry
was
because
a, it
it's,
was a,
yeah.
yeah, very significant change.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us more about that. I think that's particularly interesting because of the change. That's a big uphill climb that you have to face with people that are used to just kind of holding on tight to those clients and then building on top of that. So tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So early on, I involved consultants in the process to get the buy-in, and it took more than one consultant. I had to change the messenger up because it was difficult for partners who had grown up in this old model, which was standard in the profession. It was difficult for them to wrap their minds around anything other than it's all about how much business you bring in and how many clients you serve and being a rainmaker. And so I had the help of consultants to come in and deliver the message. And it took a couple of attempts and lots of conversations around here's what it looks like, here's what it could look like. And we did develop a system. We got the partners to buy into it. And the first year was a little rocky, but then they started seeing results, especially after the second year, seeing that it was working and that the firm was attracting talent, keeping talent. We were growing organically. And that had to do with the fact that we were shifting the mindset and we were rewarding partners for doing things other than the traditional be a rainmaker, bring in all the business you can and serve your clients and be super technical. We were rewarding other behaviors like leading teams of people, mentoring, training and developing, recruiting, leading technology initiatives, and giving away business, which is a novel idea. You need to give some of your business away, give it to your younger partners in order to create opportunities for them and develop them as leaders. And that's contrary to the way we grow up, right? We grow up thinking, I need to bring in as much business as I can, have the biggest book of business I can to make the most money. But we change that compensation to actually reward some of our most senior partners to actually give that business away and hand it off and to focus on things other than just purely bringing in the clients. And we started seeing results.
Something that really occurs to me in that is that requires a lot of courage by the chief steward, by you who saw the necessity of making that change and had the foresight to say, we're going to do this. You brought in consulting, you really were thoughtful about how you communicated that. But what were some of the things and thoughts, that you had in your mind that maybe kept you up at night as you were planning to announce that transition and that attempt to transform?
Well, I think what kept me up at night most was how this was going to impact the individual partners and their compensation. And there was concern, and some expressed more concern than others, that they were worried about how that would impact them individually. And I stressed the fact that it's not about you individually, it's not about me, it's about us as a team. We are one firm. And, I really started driving home the concept that, look, if we work together, we're going to grow and we're all going to do better. We're all going to make more money. We're all going to, make a great living if we work together and focus on us as a firm instead of as individuals. And you may see, some dips here and there in compensation, depending on how the firm does or how your performance goes. But you're going to be given a set of goals. And as long as you do your best to focus on your goals, stay in your lane, do what you do best, then you're going to be rewarded for that. And again, it took a year or two, and some partners were a little happier than others initially. But over time, they really started to see the results that we were growing as a firm. We were bringing in top talent. We were able to increase the amount of money that we were able to not only make for ourselves, but more importantly, reinvest in the firm, invest in technology, invest in training and benefits for our employees. And seeing that the proof is in the pudding is really what solidified this system, that it works.
Yeah. For our chief stewards that listen to this show that are operating their businesses with this kind of long arc mindset, what did that first year of implementation require of you as a leader? I mean, it sounds like you made a lot of investments and your goal was to prove that this was better in the long arc of time, but that's challenging. So what did that, like, what advice would you give to other chief stewards about implementing change and really working through that in the early phases?
To follow your conviction and stand by your decisions. If the leader waffles even in the least and shows, a little bit of trepidation that, wow, maybe this wasn't a good idea, maybe we should reconsider, don't do that. Stick with it and follow the system, follow the process, and be prepared to have difficult conversations. There were some awkward moments and some difficult conversations that had to take place. But, again, we saw changes in behavior, and initially some of it was difficult. We were trying to de-incentivize the behaviors that we didn't want and incentivize the good behaviors. And for partners, had been under a different system, it takes a little longer maybe for some of them, and it's a little more difficult and it requires more conversations, but don't give up and stick with it.
I think that's such great advice. And that inability to, I guess, stick to it and to welcome those challenging conversations. I've always been a big fan of Patrick Lencioni and the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And he often talks about the necessity of healthy conflict and being able to lean into those difficult conversations. So is there any tips or things that get you through with approaching those types of difficult conversations, knowing how hard they're going to be?
Well, one thing that I mentioned earlier, the use of consultants is a big help. That's not to get you off the hook with having a difficult conversation, but that is another thing that helped us stick to this process and get the partner buy-in that, as difficult as it may be for some of them, it is working and it is going to work, because it's helpful to have a neutral party that's delivering the message. They're not as much of a perceived threat. They're outside. They don't have any skin in the game in your firm. So they're coming in trying to help, and they're very independent and neutral. But also, it's just a matter of knowing that you're going to have a conversation. The person's going to receive it however they may receive it. And the best thing that you can do for them is just say, look, I'm trying to help you be the best partner and the best leader that you can be. This isn't personal. This is for us as a firm. And to also show vulnerability, to say, look, I've had to have these difficult conversations where it's been me receiving the information, and I'm not perfect, and I make mistakes, and I've made decisions that maybe weren't the best decisions. And I'm open to that feedback, because I'm also, serving at the pleasure of all of my partners, and they had some feedback for me. So it's sharing in that and showing vulnerability and helping partners to realize that this isn't just you. It's not just, partner A, B, or C. It's me as well, and us as a team. We all are getting feedback. We all have strengths. We all have areas of improvement. None of us is perfect. And I'm a big believer, and I tell my team this often, that all great leaders are coachable, that you need to be willing to be mentored and coached by someone, whether it's internal or it's an external executive coach, because we all have areas that we need to improve upon.
Wow, that's great wisdom. I fully believe in that. I mean, even the best athletes in the world have coaches, right? So,
That's right.
if anything, we have a greater responsibility the more we take on higher levels of leadership, because there's more people entrusted into our care, more resources, and a lot more complexity with how you navigate that change. So, I think that's just sage wisdom, no matter what industry you're in, for us to be able to take away. So, thank you for sharing that. And I think the other interesting thing that you talked about is, in this world where everyone in your industry seems so incentivized to sell into private equity, you have chosen to remain fiercely, might I say,
That's right.
independent. And so what is it about that fierce independence that allows you to continue to operate the firm the way that you want to operate it?
Well, we want to be in charge of our own destiny. And each year we talk around the partner table, and each year we take the oath again to each other and to ourselves that, we go through our checklist and say, do we have the infrastructure in place? Do we have all the ingredients that are needed to be able to be fiercely independent? And the answer is always yes. And we realize that that means there's going to be some hard work and some sacrifices. But at the end of the day, we want to be in charge of our own destiny. And if we are going to be good stewards of this legacy that our three founding fathers built, we need to be able to be in charge of our destiny and call the shots and decide what direction we're going in. We could sell out to private equity like a lot of our peers are doing. We could take a big fat check. The incentives are there, that they're real. The dangling of the carrot, it's very tempting. But where does that leave us? It leaves us beholden to someone else, to a higher power. We would now be reporting to investors. We would not be able to make our own decisions. They would be dictating how we run the day-to-day business. And it's not necessarily investing heavily in people, which is what we do. Now we're able to say, okay, partners, we're going to take X amount of dollars out of the profit line, and we're going to spend it on investing in this technology. We're going to spend it on employee bonuses, on beefing up our benefits, on implementing a new management training program. And these are all things that we're able to do without needing permission, if you will, of a higher power. And we like that because we've seen that it's enabled us to grow in a very careful, managed way. It's all organic. And we're all doing very well. The firm's doing fantastic. The employees and the partners are doing really well. We have a great culture. We love our culture. And that's the other thing, is that we're able to preserve the culture that we have and not worry about the fact that we're going to, again, be subject to what someone else's expectations are. And they're not going to dictate what our culture will be and what we're allowed to do for our employees and what we're allowed to spend money on. I think that's hugely important.
Yeah. How does that help you with your ability to recruit and retain the next generation of top talent?
It's part of our secret sauce, to be honest with you. And that goes for attracting clients as well as talent, because we have a lot of folks coming to us. We have clients, we have individuals wanting to come and work for us who at one time were with a firm of our size, and then they saw that firm be sold to a larger firm. That firm then took private equity, and it's changed a lot. And I'm not saying anything against the firms that have done it. And for some of them, it's worked very well. And some of the clients are served very well and very happy. Some of the employees love it. But for those who don't, who have found that it was a big shift in culture and a culture shock, they find themselves coming to a firm like ours that is more of the culture that they're used to, the small firm culture, more of a boutique firm. And so we've had employees who come to us from the larger firms. We've had clients who come to us and say, look, we're used to a different type of service and a different type of culture. And it's been very beneficial for us because we have been sticking to our plan that we're going to remain independent. We're going to continue to face the fee pressures and all of the other pressures of these big firms coming in. We have firms of every size and shape in our market, and we have been weathering the storm beautifully. So we're actually, I feel like we are benefiting more than the pros outweigh the cons for us.
That's incredible. We just recently watched a movie with our children here at home called The Kid with Bruce Willis, where he meets his younger self, and he has advanced in his career. He's been wildly successful, has maybe sold his soul to some degree to the devil, and has operated in that way. But his younger self really brings light into like looking back and seeing where all the beauty of the humanities kind of comes into place. So if you were to be able to do that, meet your younger self, maybe in the early 20s or teenage years, when you started to think about building a career and a life, what would be some of the conversations and advice that you would give to that younger self?
Follow your passion and just trust your instincts, really, is what it comes down to. I mean, you have to be able to put your head on the pillow at night and know that you feel good about the impact that you've had on someone or something. And if you can't feel that way, if you can't end your day and feel like I've made the world a better place today, I've impacted someone's life for the better, and I'm not saying every single day. There's going to be bad days too. But overall, you want to be able to feel good about what you've done. You don't want to second guess it. You don't want to feel like you've sacrificed part of your soul, for some type of gain. And I truly believe that if you follow that, you follow your heart and what's important to you, and you think about whatever it is that you're doing and, what you're working on in your business and the company you work for, whatever path you choose, you want to take what is given to you and you want to pay it forward. And for me, you want to leave it better than the way it was given to you. And that to me is what being a good steward is. And so this firm that me and my partners, that we've received, that we're now fourth generation partners, this is an incredible legacy that we've built. And we really want to keep that. And we want to continue to leave it better so that when I leave and when I retire, I want to know that I've done the best that I can. I've left it in a good place. I'm leaving it better than it was for me. And each generation hopefully will continue to do that and leave it better. And I think you just need to think along those lines and feel good about the way you are leaving something that you've become a part of and that you've made a positive impact. I think trying to strive every day to make some kind of positive impact, that's what I would tell my younger self, is continue to live like that, trying to leave a positive impact.
Amazing. I think about just the world that we're in today and how difficult leadership can be in the kind of political climates that we're in. And we don't really talk about politics on this show a lot, but there's just some things that are, that fall out of favor, like DEI is one of them. I know that you've been really committed at your firm to diversity, equity, and inclusion, even when it kind of fell out of favor in the public spotlight. And you've talked about being fierce about your values, about your independence, about the things that you believe in, not wavering. I think these are all just great pieces of wisdom. If you were to kind of sum it up, what is maybe one hard-won truth that you would share with our audience of chief stewards about what it means to lead authentically and be the steward of the long term?
Yeah, again, you need to really follow what is important to you, decide what's important to you, and decide what you're willing to do to keep that and preserve that. And for us, DEI is part of our culture. It's not an initiative. For some firms, it was an initiative, and they abandoned it in the current climate. And we haven't. It's embedded in our DNA of who we are, and it's very important to us. So we are willing to protect that at all costs. And that's what I would say is whatever it is that's important to you, look at your culture and look at what it is that makes you special and gives you that secret sauce that you're able to have success, and success in the form of not just, again, growing your revenue and making a profit, but creating and developing people, attracting talent, keeping your clients happy, attracting clients, and giving excellent client service. And a lot of that is the culture. And so for us, DEI is just part of our culture. We've had that mindset again, since the beginning from our founding partners. It's always been about community and diversity of thought and different perspectives and a very inclusive environment. And the more people you have and the different perspectives and backgrounds that we all bring to the table, it just creates a much more meaningful impact. It's amazing what impact you can have when you hear everyone's voice from different backgrounds and perspectives, and the contributions that they can make to a very successful organization and culture like the one that we have.
So many great insights to listen back to. And the one thing I'm really hearing is that it's not performative or a box that you check. It's just baked in and ingrained into the DNA of your culture, which is absolutely incredible. Jackie, this has been such a phenomenal conversation. It flew by. I know we're coming up on time, but was there one question or something that I didn't ask that you think would be important for our chief stewards listening to the show to hear today?
I just think I would like to end with, I think one of the things that's important to us is part of our compensation. Our partners do self-evaluations each year, and they're evaluated on that. And one of the questions we've started asking them on these forms is, what have you done to make the firm a better? What have you done for the betterment of the firm this year? And that's been really interesting to see the thought and the effort and the perspectives that each of the partners brings when you frame it that way, in terms of what have you as an individual done to make the firm in its entirety, our one firm, better. And that's been really impactful. So I would encourage leadership to consider that in terms of bringing contributions to the table.
Well, as an interviewer and someone who loves asking good, thoughtful questions, I'm going to add that one to the arsenal. It's going to be a good one for me to carry as a business leader. Jackie, thank you again for the leader who you are. I know the people who work with you probably see how fierce and tough you can be in terms of sticking to your values, but I know that they truly benefit from that. And at the end of the day, see that you're a leader worth following. And so I appreciate that about you. And I just encourage you to continue being who you are, because the world needs more of it.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. I really do. It makes what I do very meaningful, knowing that I'm sticking to my values and leaving our firm better than it was when I joined.
What a great way to wrap up. My sincere thanks to Jackie for joining us today. Her story about this one firm thinking really is a great reminder to me that if we want our organizations to outlast us, we have to stop rewarding the hunters and start rewarding the stewards. And she did such a great job of doing that in her organization, and everyone's benefiting from it. It's actually better in the long run for their compensation, for their well-being, for their sense of satisfaction. So I love seeing the performance on the tail end of that. And now here is your steward's call. It's one specific takeaway from each conversation that I think you can take back to the desk. During the next leadership rhythm or partner check-in, don't just ask about the numbers. Ask, what have you done to make the firm better this year? That's something that I'm going to add to the repertoire, and use that as a filter to see who's building for themselves and who's building for the foundation that follows. Remember, a legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's the foundation you build for those who follow. The Steward Chair is produced by Chat with Leaders Media in partnership with End of the Line Productions. Our executive producer is Thomas Master-Totero and Quentin Thomas, and our managing editor is Danielle Master-Totero. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm your chief interviewer and host, Jeff Bond, and with that, go and be a leader worth following.